Death is the one rule everything follows. Every animal, every plant, every organism that has ever existed on this planet has lived and died according to that rule. Except some of them didn't get the memo. There are animals alive right now that have survived conditions that should have killed them 1,000 times over. Animals that freeze solid and walk away. Animals that reverse aging. Animals that you can cut into pieces and each piece becomes a new animal. These aren't myths, this is biology. And it is stranger than anything evolution had any right to produce. This is animals that basically can't die. Tardigrade. Start small. Microscopic, in fact. The tardigrade is roughly 0.5 millimeter long. It lives in moss, in soil, in the thin film of water on a leaf. It looks like a chubby 8-legged bear under a microscope, which is why people call it the water bear. It is also the most indestructible animal on Earth by a margin that isn't even close. Heat it to 150 degrees Celsius. It survives. Freeze it to within 1 degree of absolute zero. It survives. Expose it to radiation levels that would shred the DNA of every other organism alive. It survives. Put it in the vacuum of space with no oxygen, no pressure, direct solar radiation. Survives. The tardigrade does this through cryptobiosis. When conditions become lethal, it pulls its legs in, expels almost all the water from its body, and shuts down. Not slows down, shuts down entirely. Metabolism drops to 0.01% of normal. It stops being alive in any meaningful sense. Then conditions improve. It rehydrates. It walks away. Scientists have revived tardigrades that had been in this state for over 30 years. It has survived all 5 of Earth's mass extinction events. When the asteroid hit and the dinosaurs ended, the tardigrade was in a piece of moss somewhere, completely unbothered. The most complex animals on Earth spend enormous energy building immune systems and survival mechanisms. The tardigrade simply stops existing for a while and waits for the problem to pass. It fits on the tip of a needle. Wood frog. The wood frog lives across North America, including some of the coldest regions on the continent. Every winter, it freezes. Not metaphorically, not partially, completely. Its heart stops. Its blood stops moving. Its brain activity flatlines. Ice crystals form inside its cells. By every clinical measure, the wood frog is dead for several months of the year. In spring, it thaws. The heart restarts. The frog hops away. It does this every single year without apparent damage. As temperatures drop, the frog's liver floods its cells with glucose, essentially antifreeze, which prevents ice crystals from destroying cell structure from the inside. The water between cells freezes, but the cells themselves are protected. No other vertebrate does this. Mammals, birds, reptiles, none of them survive their core temperature dropping below freezing. The wood frog does it on a seasonal schedule. It doesn't find a warm burrow. It doesn't migrate south. It just lies on the forest floor, frozen solid under the snow, and waits. There is something almost philosophical about an animal that treats death as a minor seasonal inconvenience. Axolotl. The axolotl is a Mexican salamander that never fully grows up. It retains its juvenile features throughout its entire life. External gills, a wide flat head, a permanent expression of mild surprise. It skips adulthood entirely. That is interesting. What is extraordinary is what it can do with its body. Cut off a leg, it grows back. Not scar tissue, not a partial replacement. A fully functional leg, complete with bones, nerves, blood vessels, and muscle in the exact position of the original. That alone would be remarkable. But the axolotl doesn't stop there. It regenerates parts of its heart, sections of its spinal cord, portions of its brain, the brain, full structural regeneration of central nervous system tissue. Once human neurons are gone, they are gone. The axolotl files that under temporary setback and rebuilds. The mechanism involves cells near the wound reverting to a primitive stem cell-like state and rebuilding the structure from scratch, using the original blueprint. Scientists have spent decades studying this, hoping to understand how it might apply to human medicine, spinal cord injuries, heart damage, neurological repair. The axolotl doesn't know any of this. It just grows its leg back and moves on. Hydra. The hydra is a small freshwater animal, a few millimeters long, related distantly to jellyfish. It does not age, not slowly, not gracefully. It simply does not appear to age at all. Scientists have maintained hydra colonies in laboratories for years, measuring mortality rates and reproductive output at regular intervals. The results are consistent. Hydra show no increase in mortality rate as they get older, no decline in fertility, no measurable senescence of any kind. Every cell in the hydra's body is essentially a stem cell, constantly dividing and renewing. The organism continuously turns over its cells in an unbroken cycle, never accumulating the kind of cellular damage that drives aging in other animals. If kept in stable conditions, the current evidence suggests a hydra could live indefinitely. Cut one in half. Both halves regenerate into complete animals within days. The hydra is named after the mythological creature that grew 2 heads for every one that was cut off. For once, the mythology undersells the reality. An animal with no natural lifespan, no aging clock, no biological expiration date, living quietly in ponds and streams, completely indifferent to the fact that it has solved one of biology's oldest problems. Naked mole rat. The naked mole rat is not beautiful. It is hairless, wrinkled, has prominent buck teeth, tiny, barely functional eyes, and lives in underground tunnels in East Africa, in colonies ruled by a single breeding queen. It is also one of the most biologically baffling mammals alive. A mouse of similar size lives 2 to 3 years. The naked mole rat lives over 30. Some individuals have reached close to 40 in captivity. For a small rodent, this is not an anomaly. It is an impossibility by normal biological standards. It gets stranger. Naked mole rats essentially never get cancer. In decades of study, spontaneous cancer has been documented in only a handful of individuals. The mechanisms involve highly efficient DNA repair, a unique molecule that prevents abnormal cell growth, and cellular suicide triggered whenever cells begin to proliferate wrongly. They also feel no pain from acid or capsaicin, the compound that makes chili peppers hot. They live in carbon dioxide-heavy tunnels and function in oxygen levels that would render most mammals unconscious. The naked mole rat's mortality risk barely changes from year to year. It does not follow the standard biological principle that says mortality increases exponentially with age. It simply continues, at roughly the same rate, indefinitely. It just happens to look like a thumb that made a series of bad decisions. Planarian flatworm. The planarian flatworm is roughly the size of a fingernail. Cut it in half, and you get 2 flatworms. Each half regenerates whatever it is missing. Head grows a tail grows a head, and both continue living. Cut it into dozens of pieces. Each piece becomes a new worm. The mechanism is a dense population of stem cells called neoblasts that make up roughly a quarter of the planarian's total cell count. These cells can become any other cell type in the body. When tissue is lost, They migrate to the wound site and rebuild from scratch. The planarian also periodically regenerates its own brain, not because of injury, just routine maintenance. It disassembles and reassembles its central nervous system on a regular cycle. There are studies suggesting planarians can absorb and integrate functional DNA from other organisms they consume, acquiring new traits without evolving them through any conventional process. The planarian flatworm is not really a fixed individual. It is a temporary configuration of cells that can be divided, rearranged, and resumed at will. Philosophers have spent centuries debating the nature of personal identity. The planarian dissolved that debate and used it to grow a new head: American lobster. The American lobster does not show measurable biological aging. Its metabolism does not slow. Its strength does not diminish. Its fertility does not decline. Older females produce more eggs, not fewer. There is no established maximum lifespan. The largest and oldest individuals show no signs of deterioration consistent with aging. The mechanism involves telomerase, an enzyme that repairs the protective caps on chromosomes that shorten with each cell division. In most animals, telomerase activity declines with age. The caps erode, and cells stop dividing properly. This is a core driver of aging in virtually everything alive. Lobsters maintain high telomerase activity throughout their lives. Lobsters die, but almost exclusively from external causes: disease, predation, the physical trauma of molting their shell, not from the inside. The oldest lobster on record was estimated at around 140 years old. It was caught and eaten. There is possibly no more concise summary of the relationship between humans and nature than the fact that we discovered a potentially immortal animal and immediately put it in a pot. Greenland shark. The Greenland shark moves slowly. Everything about it is slow. It swims at roughly 1 kilometer per hour. It grows about 1 centimeter per year. It also lives for somewhere between 300 and 500 years. A 2016 study used radiocarbon dating on the eye lenses of Greenland sharks, tissue that forms at birth and is never replaced, and established that the oldest individual examined was approximately 392 years old, with an error margin extending past 500. That shark was born before the 30 Years' War, before the founding of Harvard University, potentially before Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. It does not reach sexual maturity until around 150 years old. The Greenland shark lives in deep, cold Arctic waters. It is nearly blind. A parasite commonly attaches to its corneas. It moves through the water with the urgency of something that has 4 centuries to get where it's going. There is something clarifying about an animal whose lifespan makes all of recorded human history feel like an afternoon. Immortal jellyfish. Everything on this list has impressive survival abilities. Only one of them has cracked biological immortality. Turritopsis dohrnii is a small species found in the Mediterranean and other temperate oceans. It is roughly the size of a fingernail at maturity. When it is injured, starving, diseased, or simply old, it does something no other animal on Earth does. It reverts. The adult jellyfish transforms itself back into a polyp, the juvenile stage it occupied before maturity. It starts its life cycle again from the beginning. Mature, specialized cells convert into different cell types, rebuilding the organism into an earlier form. It is the biological equivalent of a butterfly climbing back into its cocoon and becoming a caterpillar. There is no established limit to how many times this can happen. In theory, A single individual could cycle through its life cycle indefinitely. In practice, most are eaten or killed by environmental factors before they ever need to use the ability. But the mechanism is there, tested, documented, and real. Every other animal on this list found a way to survive longer, heal better, or endure more. The immortal jellyfish made the question irrelevant. Death is not an endpoint. It is an inconvenience that triggers a restart. Death is the rule everything follows, except the tardigrade waiting out catastrophe in a piece of moss, the wood frog frozen solid under the snow, the axolotl regrowing its spine, the hydra that simply will not age, the naked mole rat that refuses to get cancer, the planarian that treats being cut in half as a reproduction strategy, the lobster that gets stronger every year until something external ends it, the Greenland shark circling Arctic waters with 4 centuries of patience, and the immortal jellyfish quietly restarting its life in the Mediterranean, unbothered by the concept of endings. Nature didn't design these animals to be unkillable. It just kept selecting for whatever worked, and a few of them worked so well that the rules stopped applying.